my take on the Israel-US Iran war. Greetings and welcome. Several of you have been wondering why I have not said a word in so many days about an event as significant as this war that's raging in West Asia. One reason for this is that there are so many videos available on the subject. The second is that I feel personally fed up with war and violence. It is the endless repetition of the same thing, corroborating the old dictum that history repeats itself, but man never learns. But there are times when history will force you to learn. And now that I'm convinced that we have come to such a point, I thought I would make a few observations. And I'm happy to invite you to the same. The first thing that I want to say is that this war, which is now poised to affect and afflict a large chunk of the world's population, including India, and several major Asian economies, including Japan and South Korea, among other nations, is actually a test of the new Trumpian creed, or the MAGA creed, Make America Great Again creed, put crisply as America First. In conventional language, we would say America will now embrace selfishness, aggressive self-centeredness as its national vision and philosophy. That's simply what it means. America first, all others thereafter, if at all any space is left. This major cataclysmic event is putting this principle, this dictum, this most horribly mistaken concept to a bloody test. Now, the implication in America First is that this country, which was envisaged by its founders as a city set on a hill to give light to all the world, will from now onwards organize itself and understand itself fully in terms of maximizing its interests at the expense of the interests of the rest of the world. That's really what it means. America First. That is to say, all other countries in the world, in fact, the global order as a whole, must adjust itself to suit the convenience and promote the profit of America. That's what it means. Now, you tell me whether such an arrangement can be expected to be readily accepted by the rest of the world, except under serious coercion. And therefore, something that most people don't realize, and even if they realize, they don't speak out, is the fact that America First is not as innocent or sterile a slogan as it seems. It's a camouflage for brutal pursuit of extreme self-interest, which necessitates the unleashing of violence on a very large scale. And that's what precisely we have been seeing in the last little over 1 year that Trump has been in the saddle. It's not as though this aberration has come to America for the first time since the ascension of Trump to the office of the president, the POTUS, the President of the United States. America has been following this principle, though that pursuit has been always given a more decent external appearance in terms of the professions of commitment to democracy, international rules-based order, human rights, etc., that America has been foregrounding for a period of time. But Trump knows no such fine tuning, no such hypocrisy. He is a man who deals with everything in the raw, and therefore has absolutely no qualms in saying that the sole guiding principle for America is America first. Now, if America has to be first, all other countries have to voluntarily or under coercion agree to be below America. And I'm pretty convinced that no other nation in the world, including some of the traditional allies of the United States, are happy to accept it. And that principle is now brought to the full glare of public attention and global recognition through this war against Iran. So that's the first thing I want to make very clear. For example, Trump decided to attack Venezuela, hijack its president and his wife, the first lady of Venezuela, take them to United States and force them to face trial. Not because America is particularly moral, but because America wants to dominate the natural resources of Venezuela. By the way, Venezuela has the largest oil resources in the world. Its resources are greater than that of Saudi Arabia. So obviously it's a very attractive object, a coveted object. Now the point is this: when America says America first, is there anything to prevent other nations from saying India first, China first, Russia first, Germany first, UK first, Japan first, Korea first, especially North Korea first, Iran first? Why not? Who has given America the license to arbitrarily place itself as the number one? So, when all other countries imbibe this new vision enunciated and embraced by America, what happens? The global order will fracture into 200 pieces. And it rules out the possibility of alliances and international cooperation. And that is the bitter outcome that Trump is facing at the moment. He appealed to the members of the NATO alliance. He appealed to his other erstwhile friends to join him, at least in this very minimal task of opening the Strait of Hormuz. And every one of them is saying, we'll have nothing to do with it. It's not our war, it's your war. You invited it. You took the snake from the hedge and put it in an uncomfortable place in your anatomy. Now you better face it. You have nothing to do with it. Because each country must look after its own interests, and that's what America has taught the rest of the world, and the consequences are therefore all to see. So, without exception, uniformly the reaction from everyone, including members of the NATO countries, NATO member countries, is this is not our war. So why should we participate? And Trump is naturally very miffed about it, and he does not hide his displeasure. But he does not realize, and no one tells him either, this is a natural and inevitable consequence of the great principle that he has embraced for America. So if America first is the vision that applies, then America can no longer stay committed to the preservation of the rules-based international order, because that order, insofar as it is rules-based, will modify the reach or limit the reach of America First policy in a very practical and serious manner. America cannot unleash the brutal pursuit of its vested interests in the global arena without checks and balances if the international rules-based order prevails. So, if every country embraces this principle, this dictum, then the global arena will be a conglomeration of fragmented nations without any possibility of countries coming together in order to protect the rules-based global order. And because of this ideal that Trump has proposed for himself and his country, Trump has great admiration for Putin because Putin is saying the same thing. Russia first, and in order to subserve the interest of Russia, if Ukraine has to be destroyed, so be it. So Trump is absolutely convinced as to who attacked whom, and perhaps he is not convinced, he is pretty sure that it was Ukraine that attacked Russia. Poor Putin, he is the victim. So it is this kind of absolute confusion to which Trump has led America, poor country. So when you embrace America first as your policy principle, your relationship with the rest of the world becomes transactional, which means the margin for ideals, for values, for commitment to law and order, everything goes. The simple principle of quid pro quo governs all affairs of the world, and therefore the global arena becomes a jungle of unbridled unbridled self-interest. It is for this reason that Mahatma Gandhi in the Indian context said that politics without principles is one of the 7 deadly sins. I wish Americans would heed the wisdom of the Mahatma from India. The second point I want to make is this. America does not realize, and Americans as a whole do not realize, and I don't expect Trump to realize this, that a terrible but subtle change has come about as far as America is concerned. There was a time when America tried to combine strength with force. Now here we need a little bit of semantic clarity and subtlety. What is strength and what is force? Force issues from weapons of violence, technology of violence. And Trump is never tired of saying that America has the mightiest army in the world. No other country comes anywhere close. America has the best weapons of war. All that's fine, but that's only force. But does America have strength? Strength comes out of character. Now this distinction is very important. If you think of a person like, say, Alexander the Great, he not only commanded force, he also he was also characterized by strength, the strength of character. Now, when Mahatma Gandhi was guiding the struggle for independence of India, he emphasized not physical force, but, and I'm going to quote his words, character and soul strength. He didn't say soul force. Character and soul strength. In one word, ahimsa. Ahimsa is power, power of character, power of the human spirit. It is in this respect that America is today the weakest. Why do I say that? Well, America wants to project and foreground its vested interests, America first with all that it entails, but America is not willing to pay the price for it. Americans are not willing to face up to the consequences, the implications of America first. If you want to foreground American interests globally, you have to pay the price for it, and that price has to be paid for in blood. You have to dominate the rest of the world, and that cannot be accomplished from the skies alone. It cannot be a sterile exercise. There has to be boots on the ground, which means American blood will be spilt. So, I sense America becoming more and more forceful, but weaker and weaker as the days go by. And the same goes for Europe. Europe is in a very pathetic state. Not necessarily because Europe lacks the money and the technology, but fundamentally because Europe lacks the strength, both the strength of character and the strength of alliance, because after all, there is a connection between strength of character and strength of alliance. Europe also would like to become wealthier. Europeans also would like to live in luxury, but they do not want to shed their blood. They would like others to shed their blood and then, if possible, to benefit from it. So that is an attitude that's no longer valid, and the present war is a clear illustration that this idea will not work. Now, for example, Europeans want, and this is where Trump is actually right, Europeans are very upset that due to the American-Israeli war on Iran, the Strait of Hormuz is closed with serious consequences for Europe, and Europe is badly hit, there's no doubt about it. So they would like the Strait of Hormuz opened, but they would not participate in the struggle to open the Strait of Hormuz. And therefore, in this respect, Trump is well within his rights to ridicule Europeans as a bunch of cowards. Unfortunately, that is true. Secondly, if you look at Americans themselves, they don't care two hoots for thousands of Iranians or Israelis or Saudis or people of the Gulf countries getting killed. Gaza, Lebanon, wherever. It doesn't matter to them. But, and this is important, if the price of petrol or gas goes up by a few pence, much less $1, then they're terribly upset. I find it very funny and I find it very cheap. Petrol in America is more valuable than the blood of people all over the world. And it's for this reason that I'm telling you that America has lost it. Americans have lost it. They are the weaklings of the world because they shows absolute weakness in character. Human beings should not be like this. They don't mind thousands of people from other countries dying in order to ensure the supply of cheap gas to them. Now, I can't really clap this. I can't really clap for this. In fact, I feel embarrassed. So, if you look at the American scenario from a principled ethical standpoint, you feel sorry for Americans and you feel really disappointed that this great country, this great nation, this nation of great people have come to this sorry pass. Now let me deal with another aspect, the issue raised by Iran. Now, Iran war. This issue at the heart of the Iran war is the question of the sovereignty of state. Now, we know that the present international order is based on one central principle, and that is the inviolability of the territorial integrity and sovereignty of every state. No country has the right to violate the sovereignty of another state. This is the absolute dictum of the present international order. But this hides a problem. This problem was highlighted 2 centuries ago by Immanuel Kant, who pointed out that a meaningful international order, the like of which is supposedly signified by the United Nations, cannot come into being without substantially modifying the principle of the sovereignty of states. Now, what does sovereignty of state mean? It means that there is no authority higher than the authority of the state. Therefore, the coercive power which the United Nations can command is seriously limited. Actually, in effect, it is zero. Particularly when it comes to the big powers of the world, the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. So the very structure of the United Nations ensures that it is a toothless tiger. It's not even a tiger, it's a toothless cat. And therefore, Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher, was absolutely right in saying That unless and until we take head on this principle of the absoluteness attached to the sovereignty of states, we cannot create an international order which is capable of controlling the ambitions of mighty nations, in which keep the international order constantly destabilized whenever it suits their convenience. And following upon this argument, Immanuel Kant actually projected the idea of constituting a world government, much like the various fiefdoms coming together to constitute a nation, where the old feudal lords and barons surrendered their sovereignty and invested it with the state, which is a much larger body. And therefore, the wars between these barons and lords ended, creating a comparatively better and stable condition for a national peace or domestic peace. So also, on the international scene, peace can be preserved, according to Immanuel Kant, only if the sovereignty of states is substantially modified and their right to initiate action to suit their convenience and to promote their profit is taken away from them. And that can be done, according to Kant, only by creating a world government which exercises authority according to the globally accepted universal principles, which exercises control over the enterprises and ambitions and affairs of member states. So this issue, I believe, but unfortunately this is not being talked about. You will not see a single video which deals with this important aspect. But see, Donald Trump is correct in saying that United Nations has outlasted its utility in its present form. Is absolutely right, because United Nations is nowhere in the picture. You look at Ukraine, you look at the Gaza issue, look at the Iran war, look at Venezuela, look at any part of the world. The United Nations is just a kind of ornament which has really no agency, no impact on the ground. And I'm trying to identify the main reason or the main source of the weakness of United Nations as an agency trusted with the responsibility of maintaining peace and order globally. Now, let me come to the fourth point I want to share with you. There's a good thing about this Iran war, and that is wars are becoming more and more unaffordable, and the outcomes of war are becoming more and more unpredictable. If you look at the whole thing, America walked into the Iran theater of war almost with its eyes closed. Look at the series of contradictory statements that Trump has been making in the last 19-20 days. Did American intelligence fail, or did American intelligence feed the right information to the president? Did Trump have any grounds to expect that if Iran is attacked, they will block the Strait of Hormuz? Almost every person has been talking about it, but Trump says, well, it has taken me entirely by surprise. Now, it's very obvious that Trump led America into this very bloody and difficult war in a very cavalier fashion. Why? Because Trump, with this old mindset, thought that because America has the mightiest army in the world, which it has, the Iran war, or conquering Iran or effecting a regime change in Iran, would be a walk in the park for the United States, and particularly if the US Army is complemented with the resources of Israel, which is the regional superpower. But look at the situation. Wars have become extremely expensive, and the results extremely unpredictable. It's a very good thing. I say it's a very good thing. If at all there is any margin of hope left for the rest of the world being allowed to live in peace, it is this. And here I also have to, though I would sound very cruel and heartless, please forgive me. I also want to thank Israel for introducing a very new trend in war. And that is, in olden days, the leaders who decided to launch war were always safe. And the poor people went and died, the soldiers who went and died in the battlefield. The leaders always survived and they benefited from these bloody exercises. So war became an arrangement by which the elite, the political, economic elite of a country, derived immense profit from the blood spilt of the poor in that state, in that society. Now that has changed very dramatically. Now, the first casualties in modern war are the top leaders. And that's very clear in Iran. Now, I'm not happy about it in itself, but I am happy about it in one respect, that leaders of nations from now onwards will think not twice, but 10 times, maybe 100 times before they decide to launch into a war, because they are not safe. So far they were safe, but this war has very clearly indicated that they are not safe. So, the Iran war has brought home to us a very important realization, and that is the idea of waging war to buttress or to inflate national gain is no longer sustainable. And therefore, there is a need for a radical shift in international relations. But what is that new foundation? Unfortunately, there is no discussion on this. All I can say is that Jesus of Nazareth has pointed out that option. He says there is no alternative but to live in peace with your neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. If this one principle can be put to practice globally, there will be stable, enduring world peace. If you look at world wars all over the world, a vast majority of them, 99% of them, have been between neighbors. Neighbors cannot tolerate neighbors. Iran is America's neighbor because America has bases all over the Middle East. If America were confined to the North American continent, this war would not have happened. America had to become Iran's neighbor for this war to happen. So the pattern is the same. Human beings do not have the ability, the maturity, the mental culture to live peaceably with neighbors. And the moment our species cultivates, develops the capacity to live in harmony, live in peace with neighbors, the world will be awash in peace. And finally, the last thing I want to say is the Iran war, whether you like it or not, signals the irrevocable decline of the United States of America. After this war is concluded, at which Trump is very keen to conclude, he has given every indication that he wants to retreat from the theater of war. He says, all my goals are achieved. Iran is completely devastated, but Iran continues to devastate half a dozen other countries daily. When he says Iran is devastated, war is completely won, now I can go home. But the world will see this as a gesture of American weakness. And America will never, never recover from it. And this is already evident from the reaction of even the member countries of the NATO and the traditional allies of America. All of them refuse to take America seriously. Even 2 months ago, these nations would not have responded to the request by Trump in the manner that they have. In clear defiance, in very explicit spirit of contumacy, defiance. And this was unthinkable, but now it's a reality. And I don't think there's any going back from this. And America has declined, as I argued a short while ago, largely because over a period of time it has come, or it had come, to repose its trust entirely on violence. And when you repose your trust in the efficacy of violence, what happens? You weaken yourself inwardly. In fact, I would like you to read a very small book by that very illuminating author, a lady called Hannah Arendt, one of my very favorite authors. Every one of her books is an amazing contribution to the fund of global thinking. Please read that short book on violence by Hannah Arendt, where she says, the moment you resort to violence, you lose your authority and you begin to weaken yourself inwardly. It is for this reason that Jesus said, put down the sword, because what will endure is not the power of the sword, but the power of your inner strength. There are many things in this world that cannot be solved with the power of the sword. There are many things in the world that can be handled only with the power of your inner strength. So America has virtually destroyed itself, committed suicide by gradually shifting its foundation from strength to force. And that's why even today, Trump gloats over the destructive technology that America has perfected. But that again is an exaggeration, because today China is on par with Russia, with America in this respect. And that's something that we shall have occasion to deal with here onwards. Secondly, I sense the genius of the human race migrating from the Euro-American theater to Asia, with China as the center. Human genius is migrating. America attained this prominence because it became the ultimate refuge for the human genius. Hitler committed suicide by unleashing force and violence. Violence is a double-edged sword, it will destroy you. It's a lesson that India needs to learn. So, for these two reasons, I believe that the decline of America is imminent, it's irrevocable. Maybe I should add one more thought to what I've said so far, and that is, where does India figure in all this? You recall that almost a year ago, a very concerted effort was made to project Narendra Modi as the Vishwa Guru, but now nobody talks about it. There is a very important lesson to be learned. And I've stated this already in one of the videos I shared with you maybe a year ago. And that is, the respect, the trust that a nation commands in the global arena depends entirely on the domestic strength of that country. Its domestic development, its character, its culture, its refinement, its cohesion, its unity. In all these respects, India is right at the bottom. Look at the Human Happiness Index. Where do we figure? Where do we figure in the index of press freedom? Where do we figure in the index of democracy? Where do we figure in the global development indices? In all these respects, we are nowhere near the mark. And yet, we want to be acknowledged and praised to the skies as the global guru, the Vishwa Guru. This is ridiculous. We actually ridicule ourselves. We invite contempt upon ourselves by doing so. I believe that India deserves to be the Vishwa Guru. But I also know that we have a long way to go, and we need to begin that work now. The preparation for becoming and being the Vishwa Guru must begin today. That can be done only by unleashing and harnessing the total energy of India and hitching it to this imperious project of developing India to the uttermost. But we will not do it because we have embraced this politics of negativity, hatred and violence, which is crippling us inwardly and which has ruined our image globally. Nobody takes India seriously. For example, when we went to the international stage crying that Pakistan unleashed terrorist attacks which killed 26 of our men, Hindus were singled out, and nobody actually took us seriously because, from a global perception, people really believe that we have this habit of using Pakistan to promote political agendas in India. We have lost our credibility. And therefore, when Operation Sindoor was launched, we were completely isolated. The only country that stood with us was Afghanistan. No other country, absolutely. But we still do not seem to understand or learn the lesson of it. We need to strengthen ourselves inwardly, and that can happen only if we transcend this politics of malevolence, politics of ill health, of untruth, falsehood, violence, hatred, which is destroying us, choking us from within. We must transcend all these divisive obsessions, unleash the total energy of India and harness it to the cause of national development. India can be world number one. We can beat China. We have the genius for it. What we lack is character. Character. That's what we lack. And unfortunately, neither the Prime Minister nor the cabals around him seem to realize this. It's a great pity. And nobody, the media is not telling him this. Religious leaders of the country are not telling this. The Deshabhaks of this country are not telling him this. Instead, everybody is perfecting the art of sycophancy, exalting Narendra Modi as divine. But a God who keeps telling lies, obvious, blatant lies, and who continues to play act is a very strange God indeed. There's nothing more that I would like to say on the subject now, but please remember that we are into a very significant phase in the history of the world, and therefore it's our duty to follow up on all these events. But in order to understand the way these things are unfolding, we need to have a conceptual framework. And my aim in sharing these thoughts with you, unfortunately I've taken a little more time than usual, is to try and suggest the outlines of that conceptual framework. I want to conclude by thanking each one of you for your patient attention.